Tank, everybody he fight, he make famous. Roach was a nobody before he fought. Nobody. World champion. You know what I'm saying? I look at it like this. If any of them top guys that they talk about would have had an offer that been offered to Tank, they'd have jumped on it too. That's happening, you know what I'm saying?
Nip that in the bud. Let's not make that an excuse. I even said that in the press conference myself. Like, I'm not trying to hear none of that, oh, retirements. Like, he predetermined. He knew what he was getting himself into. That's what I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. So all this retirement shit right before the press conference or during the press conference is just setting him up for a way out, just in case he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, or if I do what I did that night.
What would be next?
I mean, I'm not personally worried about that. Like, you know, we moved on. So, like, if it comes, it's a big if. Like the rematch was a big if. We were in camp for that. So, it was an if. Like I said, he pulled out of the fight that we were contracted to do. He went to the circus show fight. And, you know, he said he was going to retire. I believe him.
All the shots were delivered by Lamont Roach, who left no stone unturned in his recent interview. When questioned regarding the speculated Gervonta Tank Davis versus Jake Paul bout, Roach was quick to term it as a circus show. According to him, the fight was not about boxing, but rather about entertainment, and that Tank was wasting his talent in pursuit of internet fame.
Went to the circus show fight. And, you know, he said he was going to retire. I believe him.
Why do you say it's a circus show fight, man?
It's just for giggles. Jake Paul's 200 pounds, and he's whatever he is. So,
Spoke to Roberto Diaz over in Florida, and I know he's part of your team. He was a little bit upset when all that news came out. He called it a duck. Would you call it a duck?
For sure. You can call it a spade, for sure. You know, we're contracted to fight, and you go and take another fight. You breach that contract, and you go take another fight. That's a clear duck. I mean, obviously.
Roach was questioned regarding whether the long-rumored rematch between himself and Tank would ever materialize. He admitted that it appears far from likely now, and that both he and his camp have gotten over that one. As per his camp, the talks collapsed months ago and there is no point in pursuing it anymore. Roach appeared intent on pushing through with his career, even if that also means leaving Tank Davis behind forever.
What would be next?
I mean, I'm not personally worried about that. Like, you know, we moved on. So, like, if it comes, it's a big if. Like the rematch was a big if. We were in camp for that. So, it was an if. Like I said, he pulled out of the fight that we were contracted to do. He went to the circus show fight. And, you know, he said he was going to retire. I believe him.
The interview did not end there, as Roach was requested to share why he has so much hatred for Tank. Roach broke down that it all boiled down to disrespect and lack of professionalism on Tank's part. He shared instances when Tank taunted him in public, would not shake hands with him after their first fight, and made personal remarks outside the ring.
I necessarily feel disrespected because the rematch didn't happen. I feel disrespected towards the disrespect that was pointed towards me, or that was, you know, on his behalf. You know, and if you don't know, like, you know, just coming out of the mouth or saying socially, publicly, you know, disrespectful things, mentioning my family, shit like that. Like, I don't take too kindly to that. Like, and I never will. I will always stand on 10 about that. So, you know, like, that's not hyping a fight up. That's just disrespect. That's outside of boxing, and don't go there with me. That's all I'm saying. So, that's where the disrespect lies.
Roach then admitted that the only thing that kept him from putting up with all that disrespect was for the sake of the rematch. He really thought the second bout would finally put to rest the issue once and for all. But to Roach, Tank did bad business by withdrawing from a fight to which he had contractual obligations. He described the decision as evidence of.
And then he just did bad business. When it comes to the rematch, he did bad business. Like, you know, handle the business properly, and we wouldn't have this whole big commotion about it. It wouldn't be so much rah-rah about it.
Roach later stated that he saw this coming from the very beginning. He explained that Tank's demeanor following their draw spoke volumes, that Tank knew he scarcely avoided being defeated. Roach feels he psychologically shattered Tank that evening, and that's the reason why the rematch never materialized. As he put it, he didn't want to go through that again. Roach maintained the result frightened Tank so much that he began shunning any serious conversations and returning to the ring against him.
Nip that in the bud. Let's not make that an excuse. I even said that in the press conference myself. Like, I'm not trying to hear none of that, oh, retirement's like he predetermined. He knew what he was getting himself into. That's what I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. So all this retirement shit right before the press conference or during the press conference is just setting him up for a way out, just in case he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, or if I do what I did that night.
However, ultimately Roach revealed he would still accept the rematch if offered. He said it's not about Tank anymore, it's about cleansing his legacy. That draw just lingers on his record like a blot and he wants to take it away. He vowed that if Tank ever challenges him again, this time there will be no draw, no apologies, and no scandal. Roach's mission, he said, is to ensure fans remember him as the guy who never ducked a fight.
No.
If you could run it back, would you run it back?
For sure. That's what I mean, yes. I was unrightfully screwed out of a victory for me to be 2 division world champion. That's a big difference coming into another fight. That's a big difference in money. That's a big difference in notoriety. That's a big difference in legacy. I want to be in the Hall of Fame when I retire.
Absolutely.
Tank's trainer Calvin Ford fired back with strong words for Roach. Ford told Roach he must humble himself because he wouldn't be basking in this kind of fame without the Tank fight. He reminded Roach that Tank provided him with his largest platform and largest payday. Ford's message was straightforward: show some respect to the man who made your name known. He feels Roach's career picked up all its current popularity due to Tank rather than anything else that he has done.
Tank, everybody he fight, he make famous. Roach was a nobody before he fought. Nobody. World champion. You know what I'm saying? I look at it like this. If any of them top guys that they talk about would have had an offer that been offered to Tank, they'd have jumped on it too. That's happening, you know what I'm saying?
Showbiz the Adult also supported Ford's opinion, stating Roach's CV doesn't make him deserve his attitude. He reminded the public that prior to engaging with Tank, the majority of people hadn't even heard of Roach on the global scene. Showbiz stated the tone in which Roach is now speaking sounds arrogant and presumptuous for a fighter with no big belts or signature victories. In his opinion, Roach needs to earn his spurs first before speaking as a leading star of boxing.
He was like that against Tank. Like, you'll see. You'll see. And then he does it. And it's like, bullshit. That's bull jive. and you wonder. You look at his resume, and it's like, where do you get that shit from? Where I'm looking, you ain't knocking nobody out. When you're out boxing people, who are you out boxing it? Then he goes to all of a sudden, he's too smooth to lose.
Isaac Pitbull Cruz also admitted that Tank seems to be more out of boxing than ever. Cruz said Tank's focus has shifted from fighting top contenders to chasing clout. He added that fans can tell the difference between a fighter hungry for greatness and one just going through the motions. Coming from a man who shared a ring with Tank, Cruz's remarks poured gasoline on the mounting criticism.
The exhibition match with Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, what's your thoughts on that? Just overall, do you feel like Gervonta Davis is more checked out than being checked in boxing right now?
Sentí que Gervonta Davis está más desenganchado del boxeo que enganchado con el boxeo, considerando lo que aceptó con Jake Paul.
Sí, totalmente.
Michael Bisping also chimed in and took Tank's proposed bout against Jake Paul's sides against him. He explained that Tank has no business engaging in such a fight due to the enormous weight gap. Bisping explained that even with superior skill, that size gap cannot be dismissed. Bisping warned that Tank would do serious harm to his reputation and career by taking unnecessary risks for a social media show.
Having better boxing than a guy doesn't necessarily mean you can beat that guy up. In fact, if you conform the rules and make it just boxing rules, being a better boxer than this guy doesn't even mean you can beat a guy up under those rules.
Roy Jones Jr., though, had a different opinion. He stated that Tank can certainly knock Jake Paul out regardless of weight. Roy described how skill and timing can effortlessly overcome size when it comes to actual boxing ability. He reminded everybody that Tank's power transcends divisions and how he's already done it time and time again. But he wouldn't be surprised at all if Tank knocked it out with one punch.
To Tank's credit, I'm interested in the Tank Jake Paul exhibition because I know for a fact that if they do it for real, Tank is capable, although he's small, he's capable of knocking Jake Paul out, just like Jake Paul probably capable of knocking him out because he's so much bigger.
So you believe that?
I believe
no
that
doubt about it.
Without a question, if they fight for real. If they don't, if they say, no, well, we're going to take care of Jake, just want him to go through and learn more, then he might not knock him out, you understand me? But if they do it for real, Tank is highly capable of taking Jake Paul out. So the exhibitions that I like to see are ones that either I can mythically look at and say, wow.
Terence Crawford took issue with that, assuming if Tank even possesses that knockout ability, he won't be able to keep Jake's hands off it. Tank's diminutive stature and short reach would expose him over the course of several rounds, he asserted. He made clear it's not necessarily the question of who happens to hit harder, it's who can take the damage and keep moving. For his part, Jake Paul's natural height advantage, in his view, gives him the decisive edge regardless of the disparity in skills.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over with.
Showbiz the Adult once again stood up for Gervonta, stating that the whole boxing world appears to be conspiring against him. He stated that Tank was the face of boxing sometime in the past, yet now that he's on a downswing, everybody's taking shots. Showbiz stated that people forget how dominant Tank was recently, and that the hate he's receiving presently isn't fair. He denounced the criticism as a vulture's feast, everyone hovering while Tank's defenses are low. Tank and his crew, however, don't appear to be fazed by all the commotion.
We're going to start lifting his skirt. Why? Not to say that he has to, that's just what I say as a term. Why? To see if there's some hairy balls under there. Because we're in a combat sport full of testosterone, young warriors, everybody trying to climb and claw their way to the very top. So you see that there's a wounded lion. Somebody's going to come in there and try to eat his young.
Over the weekend, they shared some training clips of Tank hitting the heavy bag with tough determination. Fans inundated the comments stating that Tank still appears razor sharp, focused, and menacing. A number even stated that it doesn't appear he's lost his spark at all. Rather, it looks like he's more driven than ever to show folks wrong. And then came another clip, one which really shook the fans. Tank was sparring with heavyweights, standing his ground and connecting clean shots. That video made everyone believe that Tank is indeed serious about this comeback, and the message rang out clear. Whatever anyone says, Tank Davis is still around, still deadly, and possibly, just possibly, ready to shut everybody up again.
He was fighting this big boy, a heavyweight boy, and Tank hit that nigga. He hit him so hard that he was on the top of the rope just like this.
Is Tank really done, or is he going to remind everyone why they also refer to him as the face of boxing? Stay tuned, because if this narrative proves anything, it's that Gervonta Davis is never out of the fight.